If you make the right plans and you give your commitment to it, things will be successful. It's recognizing that and then making choices. So having the scaffolding to support the decisions is really critical. It's always overcoming the resistance that brings us progress. And so it's a beautiful path.
Welcome to the Hard Way podcast with Joe DeSena, founder and CEO of Spartan Races. We're teaching you how to overcome your obstacles in your life the same way we teach our 10 million plus Spartans to overcome obstacles on the course, with insight from the smartest, most accomplished experts from every corner of the world. Get ready to elevate your life today.
Joe DeSena, CEO and founder of Spartan, host of the Hard Way podcast. Have my buddy Norman Wolfe on the line here. He is the founder of Quantum Leaders and written a book called The Living Organization. Did I get that right?
You got it, Joe.
All right. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm always interested, people like yourself that are leading leaders, right? Folks that are out there grinding and rolling up their sleeves and trying to build businesses like myself. Where do leaders of leaders come from? Like, where'd you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. So,
Of course.
yeah,
Of course.
I mean, what can you say? I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, raised in a typical, way back then, middle-class Jewish Italian neighborhood. Went to Brooklyn Technical High School, graduated there, ended up going to New York University on a fencing scholarship, left New York in 1969 to go work for Pratt & Whitney Aircraft as an engineer. Was working on testing data acquisition systems, which was using all Hewlett-Packard equipment, and that got me an introduction to Hewlett-Packard, and I spent most of my corporate career at HP. And there I learned a lot about what it really meant to lead organizations. My first management position I had was offered the opportunity to be a district service manager. I was originally a systems engineer working with the salespeople and customers, and I knew nothing about fixing computers. But here I am now running an organization that's fixing computers. And not only that, but I was working with an organization that was traditionally bench technicians that were now in the car going out on customer sites. So there was a major cultural transformation happening, which I wasn't aware I was stepping into, but I did. And I'd like to say the highlight of my management career was that I had a performance review that was unacceptable in every category after my first year. You know, they say you learn more from your mistakes than from your successes, and I will be a living testament to that statement. I was going to go back to being a systems engineer again. I mean, I was really good at that. But I was coached and mentored, thankfully, to stick with it. They saw things changing. They saw opportunity in me. They encouraged me to stay with it. And I did grew up in the organizational ranks, moved up to the regional level, was the region administrative manager at HP for about 5 years before I decided to leave. Again, took over an organization for which I wasn't technical expert in. I never ran an administrative function before. Took over the worst performing administrative organization out of the 4 regions. Turned it around, again, had a lot of success. So somewhere along the line, I learned some principles about how to lead organization, especially going through transitions, challenges, poor performance, cultural shifts. And I learned a whole lot of skills. So in 1988, when I decided to leave the corporate world, I had all this wonderful leadership experience. So what do you do with it? You become a consultant. Of course, I didn't even know how to spell consulting at that time. I knew nothing about what it meant to be a consultant. Fortunately, I found a group of consultants that supported each other and got a lot of guidance along the way, how to price myself, how to write contracts, and how to sell consulting, and just kind of bumbled my way through, quite frankly. But one opportunity led to another opportunity, led to another opportunity. I found myself doing all sorts of consulting work, from business process reengineering, total quality management, lean operations, to sales training and marketing, and eventually kept working more and more towards working with CEOs, coaching CEOs, dealing with strategy and strategy execution. And that became sort of the framework of my career. In 2001, I was invited by one of my clients to be on the board of directors. They were a public company, so now I'm getting public company experience. And I was talking to the CEO at the time, and I said, "Bill, what do you keep hiring me for as a consultant?" And he said, Without even blinking an eye, I said, that's easy. You help me execute faster. And that's when I really began to take this focus on, what am I doing that helps organizations execute better? And as I looked at that, I began to see the statistics about 70% of companies fail to execute on their implementations, the strategies, the programs. And that got me really curious as to why that was the case. So one thing led to another. That's life has a way of unfolding. And here I am talking about a different paradigm of business.
I would imagine the thing that pauses or hinders CEOs and organizations from executing faster, unlike Musk, probably takes place in households and individuals' lives as well. What is the main impediment?
Well, that's a great question. And I would say the main impediment is something I call context. We live in a society that's focused on intellect and rational thinking and data analysis. And if you make the right plans and you give your commitment to it, things will be successful. That's the underlying assumption. The emphasis is on the planning phase, which obviously is an important phase. But when it comes to executing anything, something inside of us drives our behavior. And that's what I began to look at. What drives, if our behaviors cause our outcomes, what drives our behaviors? Why do we respond to life in certain ways? What I came to understand, and it's sort of not really my ideas, it comes from philosophy, psychology, spirituality, perennial wisdom, physics. I mean, it sort of has roots in everything. The way I consolidated all of that was, if we have, think of it like this. The analogy I use is, there's a genetic DNA coding for the way our body responds to events in life, right? Our heart knows how to pump, and our blood cells know how to replenish itself. And if it gets a disease, it knows what to do with it. And it's all done by our genetic coding, right? And our bodies form based on genetics. Well, our behaviors are also driven by a set of codes. And I call that our psychic DNA. And I refer to it collectively as our context. And the way our psychic DNA gets formed, very similar to the way our genetic DNA gets formed, is we have an experience in life. And as humans, we want to make meaning out of that experience. So we create a story. And we say, this happened, that means this. And therefore, I should behave this way to make myself feel safe or successful. And that story behavior combination gets plugged into our decision-making mechanism. And every experience we have builds up this kind of pairs of behavior stories and behavior combinations that forms like a helix. It's like a psychic DNA. The good news about that is it's what allows us to respond to life very quickly. Right? We don't have to think through what should we do. We just respond. That's really good, except when our response isn't getting us the result we want. And so we keep trying to change our behaviors, but we don't go into our underlying context that's driving the behaviors. And you see that on an individual level, the statistics around people who fail to achieve their New Year's resolutions, right? We make a decision, and a month later, we're back to doing the same thing. Those who go on diets, we're really committed, but our behavior patterns, unconsciously, we don't even realize we're reaching for the popcorn or reaching for the ice cream. It's just what we do. So that's a big part of what I discovered, is this concept of context that drives behaviors, and behaviors drives outcomes.
How do you undo? You're in our organization tomorrow. We've got a bunch of hardwired individuals based on, like you said, their life experiences and the way they've responded to them. How do we pivot? How do we change individuals?
And it has to do with uncovering what the unconscious context is. So one way you do that is, remember I said context is tied to stories. So what are the stories we're telling ourselves? And what's interesting about a collective of people is the individuals within the collective will start to adopt and adopt the context of the group they're in. We all want to belong, right? So we don't even think about it. We just naturally, this is the way we behave around here. And this is why. These are the stories we tell ourselves as to why we should respond to a customer this way, or why we should deal with our parent company this way, or why we should respond to operations. If I'm in sales, we respond this way because operations, they're a pain in the butt, right? What are those stories we're telling ourselves? I'll give you an example. I had a client that was a sole source supplier to the U.S. government. They provided highly advanced cryptographic algorithms for security. In the sense they were sole source supplier, the engineers viewed themselves, their context was, we provide the most elegant solutions we can come up with. And money wasn't an issue. They tell business development, this is how much we need, and business development will go get it from the government. They were sole source supplier. That worked great for years until they started to run into competition, and the government decided they weren't going to do sole source supplier. They were looking for competitive bids. Now they were in a competitive environment. The engineers still held the context, and they behaved according to that belief system that we provide the elegant solutions. Biz Dev goes gets the money. Don't bother us. Don't challenge us. So that was their story. We provide the most elegant solutions. Now, to change the behaviors, I had to change the story. And what we did over a number of engagements, number of weeks, a couple of months actually, we began to reframe it to any engineer with unlimited resources can create an elegant solution. Only the very best engineers can create elegant solutions within a budget. Are you really the best? We took what was important to them, the core element, they are the best engineers developing elegant solutions, and reframed what best meant so that they now took on the challenge and started to adapt and adopt a new story of only the best engineers can create elegant solutions within a budget. They went from losing, well, let's just say they were winning 10% of the bids to winning 70% of the bids within 9 months. So there's an example of how you change behaviors or change context to change behaviors to change outcomes.
It's funny. I told my team last week, we want the organization to move faster. And one of the things I thought of, although it seems very superficial, was I said, at the bottom of my signature on my email, it says, the fast eat the slow. Somebody told me a long time ago, they said, it's not the big that eat the small, it's the fast that eat the slow. And so that became my saying. So I said, the first thing we could do is put that on everybody's signature. Everybody now is branded with the fast eat the slow. And whether they like it or not, that's how they're going to become known to the people they're communicating with. And maybe they'll start to adopt that, in addition to other things, but I don't know. Is that a crazy idea?
No, it's not actually. If that's a key element to what you consider to be success, then that's the story you're beginning to weave. That's the belief system you want to hold. Now, you have to support that with what we call scaffolding. Scaffolding comes in two ways. One is visible scaffolding, like systems and processes you might put in place. Like you might have a reward system for those who moved fast and got rewarded for that. You might also have rituals in place where you acknowledge people who are moving fast and you honor them and recognize them, and you create ceremonies about how we succeeded because we moved fast. That starts to imbue the storyline into an embodied way of being. And that's what you really want to do. That's why I said it wasn't just coming up with that simple reframing of the story. You have to support the story with scaffolding, so to speak.
I love it. Give an example in a household so people can apply it to their own lives, maybe with their relationship with their, better half or their own journey with health and wellness, whatever it be. Like, they just need to change their story, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, that's all they need to do. But I want to acknowledge it's not really easy. It's not like, okay, today I'm going to have a new story. I'll share one of my own personal journeys in this. I grew up in a very matriarchal family, and my underlying story was please the women, please the mother. In setting out to please the mother, the need of the child is acknowledgement that I'm pleasing you. So let's just assume, just simply put, that's my inner story. If I'm in relationship with a woman, say my wife, and I hear a tone in her voice that says, I'm unhappy with what I just observed, I get triggered. That trigger has literally nothing to do with my wife. I don't know why my wife is talking that way. She may be upset with me. She may be just tired or frustrated or simply upset at herself. I would get triggered, and my response was, "Why are you criticizing me?" She started getting defensive because now I'm attacking her. And you can see how that will escalate. Now, becoming aware that it is my story behavior pattern that's at play here, I can simply say, that's my story. It may not be hers. Let me check it out. And I'll go, "Hon, I just feel like you criticize me. It might be my story. I just want to know what your intention is. Are you criticizing me?" She said, "No, I'm just tired, pissed off about life in general." And now we've just broken that pattern, and I can start hearing her and saying, maybe she's not upset at me. Or maybe she is. Let me ask the question. That's how you do it on a personal level. It's the same process, and just, personally.
And then build some scaffolding around it and make sure that...
With some scaffolding, yeah, we have some ways my wife and I talk about, this is my perception, I just want to check it out. So that's part of that scaffolding, the processes we use. And then there's also the ritual we have of, we've set up what we call an appreciation bank. It's so easy in relationships to always be focused on what's not working. And we decided early on that we would focus on what is working and always appreciate it. So when we get pissed off, we got this bank account of feeling appreciated that we can draw on to overcome the feeling of judgment. So that's part of our scaffolding that we built. Yeah.
Have you had experience? I know the audience would love to hear about this, around health and wellness, getting to the gym, working out, the general resistance most people feel, and they don't do it. Like, I believe, push back on it, I believe the brain is hardwired to not do the work. The brain is hardwired to preserve energy. It's not seeking to go out in the cold or the rain. They're too dangerous, right? 10,000 years ago, those were dangerous decisions. So a lot of our inability to stick with a program and stay fit and healthy is just legacy hardware, in my opinion. And you gotta change the story.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And yes, I do have experience with that. And it's not a very successful experience because I can't get myself to exercise either. But I agree with you. The body, all of life seeks to preserve energy. Right? That's just the natural order of things. So we always take the path of least resistance. That's the way nature works. And so we work the same way. It's recognizing that and then making choices, right? Whether it's getting to the gym or taking a walk around I live in a beautiful community with a nature trail just less than 100 yards from my door. Again, having scaffolding around the intention is helpful. So like my wife will say, let's go for a walk with the dogs. My first feeling is, no, I don't want to. I got too much work to do. I'm at my desk. And then I catch myself and I reframe my programming to tell myself a new story. Yes, I do enjoy getting outside in fresh air. And I just remind myself of that. So having the scaffolding to support the decisions is really critical. And the scaffolding could be a exercise buddy or a diet buddy, or it could be listening to tapes or something that breaks the pattern. And that's basically what we have to do, is break the pattern. They say it takes, 90 days for a new habit to form. That's what we have to do.
Break the pattern. It's funny because I've broken the pattern and I seek the path of most resistance. I really do. I was just in Saudi Arabia 3 days ago, and they said, okay, we're going to go to the top of the tallest dune in Saudi Arabia, and then we're going to jump off with parachutes. And I said, okay. And they said, we're going to drive up. And I said, no, we're not. We're going to walk up. We're going to hike up. And so I seek the path of most resistance. So how do people find you?
People find me NWOLFE at quantumleaders.com, or just go to my website, Quantum Leaders, and click on contact. If you want to see my book, you can see the first 3. It's on Amazon, so just search for The Living Organization. If you want to get 3 chapters, the first 3 chapters, go to quantumleaders.com/podcast, and you'll be able to download the first 3 chapters of the book.
There's a professor at University of Pennsylvania. He's been on the podcast. I think his name's Kevin Kaiser, if I remember correctly. And he looks at organizations like living organisms. You guys would get along very well.
And to your point about seeking resistance, that's actually quite a spiritual path, because what we know from spirituality is that it's going through the resistance that brings us to enlightenment. So it's always overcoming the resistance that brings us progress. And so it's a beautiful path.
Yeah, I grew up in Queens. You grew up in Brooklyn, and I there's some kind of tape playing in my head where it's like, if it's hard, do it. If it's easy, don't do it. And maybe we grew up in a crazy time. Who knows?
Who knows?